everyone. Welcome to the Support the Spectrum channel. If you're new here, my name is Ryann Sutera. I'm a neurodiversity affirming speech language pathologist, and today we're talking about regression. Have you or a loved one experienced a regression of skills? Maybe you've lost access to skills that were once easy or at least there. Things like language, social interaction, self-care routines, and it feels like such a huge setback. Well, today we're going to talk about that because there are many misconceptions about it, and we're going to get into the science of why someone might regress and also bring in some personal stories from my practice. My practice, Support the Spectrum, has helped many through that stage of regression, and if you are in need of help, please check out my website. So first things first, regression is real. It's not always permanent, but there is meaning that is purposeful behind it. It's rarely meaningless. So the real definition is temporary or long-lasting loss of previously attained skills. And regression does not always mean that you lose the ability to do something, but it could also mean that you lost access to that skill. What do we mean by that? When we're talking about certain skills, we might be talking about motor movements, oral motor movements, physically moving through a routine with gross motor movements, and a lot of neurodivergent people, particularly autistic people, have motor planning challenges or motor planning disorders. I have a whole video about apraxia and dyspraxia. If you think that that might be something that you or a loved one is experiencing, I would highly recommend checking that one out. But just to summarize it in the world of regression, perhaps someone has not truly lost the skill, but they have lost the motor plan to access that skill. That's one of the reasons why I really hesitate to even call regression. Regression is real. Other ways of expressing that might say that you've lost access to that skill, you are responding to nervous system overwhelm, you're in a period of recalibration, you're experiencing a temporary shutdown or a nervous system response, a survival response. The most common forms of regression that I have seen have been language expression, so someone experiencing selective mutism or someone experiencing a executive dysfunction, not performing the certain types of executive functioning that they may have before, which could be taking care of yourself, organizing, planning, attention even. There could be a loss of skills, motor skills, so writing, feeding yourself, and then of course a regression of social skills for engagement. So let's answer the question, why does regression happen? And there are quite a few different causes. They are not exclusive. Multiple could be happening at once, and we might even miss some on this list. So if you have anything to add, please leave it in the comments below. One of the causes of regression might be autistic burnout, which we've discussed many times on this channel. But just to summarize, imagine that you are an autistic person or any type of neurodivergent person, and you are masking all the time to be assimilated into a neurotypical society, and you're constantly ignoring what comes authentically to you so that you can mask and be a part of society and not be challenged by certain things or not be made a joke of, whatever the case. You're ignoring your own internal needs or external needs, but you're having this internal crisis in your mind. Over time, when you are consistently using your machinery in a different way than it is authentically supposed to be used, you're going to cause autistic burnout, which is literally a nervous system shutdown. So that is why a lot of people will regress, hesitate to use that word because those skills are most likely still in there. It's just, hello, they've been burnt to a crisp and that person needs help, and they have decided, or not even consciously decided, it could be subconscious, that survival state that your nervous system is in might be a freeze response, might be a fawn response, could be a flight or a fight. Now that I really think about it, could be any nervous system response, a survival response. And because of your body using all that energy, your nervous system using all that energy to protect itself, it cannot allocate the energy to anything else. So things that might have become second nature to you, self-care skills, social skills, motor skills, language skills, is now being all used to survive, so you can't access those skills any longer. Another cause, a possible cause of regression, could be adjustments to new routines or stimuli. There might be something new in your life, a certain schedule change, or even a certain person comes into your life, and it could be very dysregulating for the nervous system. Also, amongst this is adjustments of routine, stimuli, or environment. For example, I have a client who was speaking, and then the COVID-19 pandemic happened, and that became a completely isolating environment. You're not leaving your house, you're not socializing with friends, you're no longer going to school. And of course, your brain responds in different ways based on that change, huge change. So it could be because your nervous system is adjusting to certain things and it's choosing to allocate the energy towards that adjustment rather than previously attained accessed skills. Or it could be that those skills are so out of practice that it has caused a temporary loss of those skills. My client in particular is non-speaking. The amount of language that they did have, they no longer verbally express that language anymore. So they just started working with me a few months ago, and that would be considered selective mutism. Maybe could be a motor planning issue. We're suspecting selective mutism because of the emotional response of COVID-19. And then there were some other changes in the client's life that I'm not going to share. But how we address that is making sure they have access to AAC so that what they want to express is accessible to them visually. And then we're also working on just gaining that confidence back and the nervous system regulation to then be able to allocate the resources to expressive communication. Another cause of regression is nervous system dysregulation. I feel like we've talked about that plenty, but it could be caused by anything. So I just want to make that note. Just because something is not dysregulating to you does not mean that it is not dysregulating to others. So it's important to really fine-tune, look at your life or a loved one's life and really figure out what could have caused a nervous system dysregulation. Because even for your own self, sometimes it's hard to note. You're just going day to day, living life, and things happen all the time, right? But sometimes you have to go back and reflect on, how did I actually feel about that? Did that really mess me up? Good questions to ask. Okay, another possible cause of regression is motor planning difficulties. We touched on that a little bit. Apraxia, dyspraxia. Perhaps that individual, you or loved one, is not able to access the motor plan to perform certain skills that they once had perfect access to. And that the cause of those things is literally a motor planning disorder or dysfunction or challenge. It also is exacerbated by nervous system dysregulation, moods, environment, all of those things. Okay, this next one is really, really important. We've touched on it before on this channel, but we're really going to talk about why your learner might be in this regression period, and maybe it started as they are getting older and older. And the reason for this, if they're autistic, is because they found in postmortem autistic brains that there were more synapses, more connections between neurons, brain cells, than in neurotypical brains, suggesting that a process called synaptic pruning did not occur at the same rate as it does in neurotypical brains. What does this mean? This means that throughout neurotypical development, our brains will start to snip away the synapses that are no longer efficient. That phrase, use it or lose it, is very real and is happening in the brains of neurotypical people all the time. The glial cells in your brain will start to literally get rid of the neural connections that are not being used. So for me, if you were to put a calculus sheet in front of me, I would have no clue what the heck you're talking about. Well, I had no clue in high school too, actually. That's not a good example. But a skill that I did have in high school, let's say, that I have not used since high school, you could put it in front of me and my brain would be, girl, I don't know. Because those neurons, those synapses have not been used in quite a long time. That's just an example. It might not even be true. But when we're talking about an autistic brain, they are holding on to all that information. The synaptic pruning is not happening. So even if a synapse has not been used for years, it's still there. So you're imagining kind of like a dense forest, a dense network and system of neurons and synapses, right? So when, as a autistic person continues to age, they're just gathering more and more collectible Pokemon cards, right? And it's harder and harder to organize. It's harder and harder to receive stimuli, process it because it's making way more stops, integrate it, formulate a response, and get the response out, right? So in that case, I'm kind of talking about language expression, but it could be a motor routine as well. Perhaps the alarm is going off, you're receiving that stimuli, it's taking way longer to process, and maybe it gets lost and gets sent away, and it's not even integrated or formulated a response at all. So you're looking at your loved one and you're wondering, they used to do this routine by themselves. They used to be completely independent with this routine. It could be that because of result of many, many synapses in the brain, that they are not accessing that routine as efficiently or independently as they used to. And the way to solve that is to give accommodations for that until they build up that synaptic pathway again. Because more neural connections does not mean more efficiency. It means more disorganization. Okay, another cause of regression could be not feeling safe or understood, which is basically this, it's a part of a nervous system dysregulation. Someone who does not feel safe and does not feel understood cannot perform in the way that someone who can does. It becomes a shutdown as a protective mechanism. And the last possible cause of regression today is being over-supported or under-challenged, right? We always want to help when help is needed, but we only help after we have given a chance for independence to occur. Independence, it's so necessary to at least let the neurodivergent individual or anyone of any neurotype to at least attempt independence and try it out for them before offering help. Because overhelping does lead to learned helplessness, and that does lead to withdrawal. It leads to those neural pathways being, not as strong and efficient. So it's just something to remember and consider. So now we're going to talk about regression as a season, okay? Not permanent. Because regression is not the same as degeneration. It's not the same as those neural pathways just poof, disappearing. Skills often reemerge when the nervous system is regulated and when you practice those routines given the accommodations that they need at that time. Because development in general is not linear. There is often a cyclical loop where sometimes you go back to a certain behavior that maybe you just didn't want to do, but it comes back. And that's happening in my real life right now. I have been so consistent with cleaning my room specifically. And I'm finding that right now in this season, for whatever reason, it's messy as heck. I haven't been on it at all. I think it's because my routines have been messed up a little bit. But that's just an example, right? I'm not regressing, or at least I don't like to think about it that way. I'm not regressing in that skill. It's just for some reason right now, because my routines got changed, I think I'm not accessing it as quickly as I was this whole previous part of this year. Growth is not linear. Development is not linear. And you're not any less of a learner, a scientist, a growth, what's the word I'm going to use? A continuously progressing person because we're having moments of backtracking a little bit. Okay, so now let's talk about how to respond to regression. This could be a whole video in itself because a lot of people think, I have to push harder. They're regressing, so we have to go harder. When in reality, we should be thinking about how can I regulate their nervous system as much as possible? How can I make sure they feel the most safe, that they feel the most comfortable, and making sure that they are at a level where they feel stable, right? You need to make sure that they're at a point where they can access it, or else there's not going to be any output to give. A lot of times, this might be reducing demands, okay? I'm not saying reduce all demands. Obviously, people have to brush their teeth and they have to take care of themselves in the bathroom. But if you need to, for a while, help with cueing that, you can absolutely do it in a way that is not alarming to the nervous system. Visual stimuli is a great way of doing that, so that you're providing them with maybe the proper steps, but you're not physically taking and doing it for them, right? In the case of like brushing teeth, you do not want to shame them. You do not want to force them, because then you're sending the nervous system into dysregulation. You may need to adjust the environment. This is way easier said than done. We just used the COVID-19 example, right? There was no way to adjust that environment. The whole world was shut down, and most of us didn't even really understand why. So it was hard to relay that information to people. But if you can, you might need to reduce the amount of stuff on their schedule, reduce the amount of expectations on them in the house, making sure that their room or wherever they like to hang out is as comfortable and clean as possible. Offer co-regulation and connection as much as possible, please. This is so important. Our bodies are built to co-regulate with someone. We're not actually built to self-regulate. Self-regulation is a great skill. We definitely teach that here at Support the Spectrum, but it starts with co-regulation first. They need to have a trusted person. So words of affirmation to them. You are strong. You're going to get through this. I see that you're not feeling your best. I'm going to help you this way, XYZ way, whatever their favorite ways are. Use your relationship as a regulation tool. In this time, please acknowledge any and all forms of communication. Okay, we're not forcing someone, we're not creating language demand. We are modeling language for sure, and any way they choose to communicate is valid. That includes something like smacking away instead of saying like, go away. If they are doing that at that time, it's okay. You can still model that language so that later it'll come back. And please trust the process, okay? Skills might come back looking a new way or in a new context, but just trust that that is where that person is. And we always meet people where they're at, not where you or others expect them to be. TM, support the spectrum. But it's important to know when to seek support. So if regression is affecting skills that truly affect deeply daily life, self-care, safety measures, then absolutely seek out professionals for that. And also, if the regression seems to just have come out of nowhere, like if you truly cannot identify what the cause could have been, I would highly recommend seeking medical help, because perhaps there's something that we cannot see on the surface going on. So all that to say that regression is a response. It's not a failure. Or if it is a lack of access to motor plans, it's not a failure. And I'm wondering if any of you have a personal experience with regression. How did you support it? What do you think the cause was? Was it something you were able to progress out of? I'm very interested to learn more about your experience. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and share this video with anyone who needs to hear it. And I will see you in the next one.